guessing they were cleaning up their classroom.
Right.
And so if you, I think you may have more attendance if you have it at breakfast. So if people come right here and then they go back to their schools and can work. I think, you're talking a big chunk of 2 or so hours out of their midday. And at that point, teachers want to get their classrooms cleaned up. They got to get grades in and get everything done. So I put that out as a thought. You don't have to.
We do a breakfast and then a whole school meeting.
Yeah.
Everybody's there. Janitors, everybody's there. Food service. And then
For recognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do that too, but I think that some staff are invited to come, they don't all come. I don't know the direction
I
working.
thought it was mandatory for us.
So Mike, would you rather cook eggs or a cheeseburger?
I'll cook whatever you want.
Yeah,
I'm always eating.
Well, wait a
I have
minute,
no
didn't we
preference.
just get big numbered product at the breakfast in
I'm all for
the high
both.
school,
Yeah.
so there we go.
You just gave us a bonus, so, which was unexpected, so let's make some breakfast and some lunch.
I think the breakfast is a good idea, and so unless there's objection, I'd suggest that the superintendent look into that and see what can be coordinated. Plus, a lot of people last day, they kind of want to have lunch one last time with their colleagues, or at least hang out a little bit. As soon as we have that lunch out, I don't even want to stay for lunch. I don't know if we don't have the lunch, but we have one now. I'm like, I want to leave, I don't want to have to eat at 11 when I'm all done with my, I'm all done.
I think most teachers just want to go.
So breakfast and then.
So breakfast and
awards
then awards, and then you can go back to your buildings, as opposed to going to the buildings, coming here and then going back. Do you think teachers would prefer that? Okay, let me investigate it. Let me have a conversation with Phil about what he can do for breakfast. I think, and honestly, I think breakfast is far easier than getting all the grills and getting. I think it'll be an easier management on our part. Yeah.
Get off the griddle, it's all good.
Okay, I'll look into that. I'll get you more information for your next meeting.
Thank you,
firm
Stacy.
things up.
Okay, next we have proposed board schedule for the year, which of course is proposed, tentative, but, Stacy actually put the dates together, and there was one concern I had, which was that we didn't have a regularly scheduled meeting in July. And I find that with people leaving and last minute changes in personnel, that we actually need one in July to not make a nomination wait until August.
I mean, so I'll throw out the other option you can do is authorize the superintendent to hire until the next board meeting.
I think that was a problem in the past, though.
Actually, that's what we did.
We did do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, that's pretty traditional.
And then we approve it.
Just so that, I mean, the other thing is that if we interview in the beginning of June, we don't, and you already had a board meeting, people aren't waiting a month to give resignations in other
Right.
places.
Right, yeah,
So,
yeah, okay.
We do that for the summer.
So we could do that in June.
yeah.
It's interesting that the first two P&D subjects were assessments and then board goal setting, because that's what I had in mind. And so the discussion of assessments would be first, and then the goal setting would be using the board evaluations and going through those at that time and setting goals using that data. Any other thoughts?
This goes for me because I'm a planner.
And then the one other thing that I had then was, I'd like the P&Ds to travel so that we can get input from different locations. So regular board meetings here, but I'd like to travel for more than one reason. But one is I'd like to go to the other schools so we see the schools. Because we come here to the brand new school and never get to see the other locations our students are at, but also to give other people an opportunity to have input to traveling all the way here, if you're like in Groton, is difficult, and you don't do it on a weeknight when you gotta get your kids up in the morning.
We always did go around to the schools, and I felt that it was very valuable.
Yeah.
And until we started filming, and we really couldn't do it because we couldn't set it up everywhere. But that's an excellent answer to that, to have the planning and dialogues, because we don't film.
We don't film
those.
them, right. Any other thoughts on that? Any other thoughts on this? Any other big calendar issues, Vincent Paul, that aren't already on here, like in terms of what we normally do at certain times?
The possibility of a second meeting in December, given budgetary issues. I recall one year we had 3 meetings in December. But, it's not.
Yeah, I think, I didn't put it on there because I think the 4th is the holiday week.
Yeah, this is certainly not a bad idea. Are these all the second Mondays,
Yeah.
essentially?
It's the 2nd and 4th,
So, yeah,
with the
second and
exception
fourth.
of like Tuesday, May 2nd, because the Monday is a holiday. So,
Yeah, for planning purposes, it's probably not a bad idea. It's always if these are the second Mondays, then the question of whether we have a P and D or not is just depending on circumstances.
Anyone else?
I
Jeff?
like your idea of traveling.
It's all good.
Okay. All right, then can we pick our travel sites for the first couple? You want me to just determine a rotation for them? I can do that.
And keep us out of Groton in the winter.
Well, since Groton doesn't have a school,
yes, and
that
then
won't be
have
a problem.
But
Not
that's
in
We've gone to
Alexandria
the town
either.
hall
Yes,
to meet.
but I was just gonna say, I actually would like to do that, though. I would like one of them to be in Groton at the town, so let's do it in the summer, after the frost heaves are gone. But we went there to interview candidates, you know, we had a meet and greet there, and, you know, I can drive around the lake the same as anyone in Groton who wants input can.
I don't see a problem with it, except that I think we ought to stay centrally located.
This isn't central to me, is it
No,
central to you?
no, but to drag people out to North Groton, I don't see the need in it.
So I think the schools, like you had said, then reinforces our opinion of the schools.
So if you're in Hebron, if you're in Bridgewater after school, at least it's a
That-
shorter distance.
Well, that makes more sense than, you know, I agree with seeing the schools. I don't think we necessarily need to go out to every single community.
I wasn't in with everyone, but I know.
Let's start at the middle school.
What's that?
Let's start at the middle school.
Okay. Okay, Stacy?
Yeah.
And I just want to say, speaking of the middle school, just because we know it needs some work, we are still looking, so I'm saying to the camera, we are still looking for one person to volunteer for the facilities committee. We asked for 2, and I know some people are like, well, I don't know, what do I have to offer? So I have a relative who's going to volunteer, of course, and I've asked another one I haven't heard from, and I asked a lady in Bristol who didn't return my call. Not that I expected her to, I told her she could call Stacy if she was interested, but we were looking for people who knew something about building. So the first person from Bridgewater is Danny Tucker, and he works with heating and cooling systems. So we've got that covered. And the second person that I've asked is a general contractor with excavation experience. Haven't heard back, so we really are looking for one more. If anybody has someone, they don't have to be related to you to ask them. So we, you know, like Stacy says, we'd like somebody who knows what an HVAC system is, and maybe knows something about, you know, retaining walls and support walls
And the purpose of the committee was really to help us develop a 10-year kind of long-term plan for our facilities.
so that we don't have big budget spikes, but make a list of what needs doing and chip away at it in a strategic fashion.
There's one guy in Hebron that I'll have to find out his name that develops like senior housing,
Yeah,
multiple unit
yeah.
housing.
Let Stacy know. Okay. Next, we are, I don't need a motion on this, do I?
No.
No, okay. So next we're looking at approval of manifests.
Yes.
Something
I
to say?
know we have well, I'm pretty sure we have February's done.
No, unless somebody else went in, I didn't get that last one.
Okay, we'll pass.
Okay, all right. That's not applicable. Okay, so then we have announcements and recognitions. I know we need to recognize Nancy Kate, so Stacy, do you want to tell us about her award? And
Actually have several announcements, but Nancy Kate, who works in high school in our food service department, was applied for and received the Louise Sublet Award of Excellence. And she applied for that based on the work that she has done here at the high school to improve the breakfast program, to increase participation. One of the things we found, our numbers here at the high school were really low for participation of students who actually were eligible for free or reduced lunch. And some of the things that they did were, one of the things we didn't have was any kind of to-go option. So you kind of had to go into the cafeteria, eat breakfast, you had to sit there. And so we started offering several to-go options, such as fruit smoothies and yogurts to go and things like that. And the students have really loved that, and she has done a great job. I think she increased, for the number, Mike, any chance you know?
I think
It's like
she told us.
It
36% or,
is significant, it's over 30%, which I think, it's something we need to work on more with all the meal offerings we have, especially at the high school. Which includes looking, and it's great working with two people like Nancy and Phil, who are very open to some new ideas. And they're pretty good at communicating with the billing administrators too, which is good, great for those programs. They've done some things on their own too. They care about the program, which is what you need. That's first and foremost. And then making those improvements, improving enrollment, improving the information. We're working on, have some initiatives where we're going to be working on the website to make it very parent-friendly, including the filling out of forms. Sometimes just the filling out of these forms, it's a daunting and somewhat can be an embarrassing task to people. We need to take that away from it because a lot of our aid comes from people simply helping us with getting these forms in and improving these offerings.
I bring that up at PTO meeting, because we've had people who qualify for free and reduced and they don't want to take it, and I tell them fill out the form anyway, because our federal funds are linked to those numbers.
she increased breakfast meals by 34%. Which is very significant, so congratulations.
You don't see that very often in schools.
Yeah.
Would you like me to keep going? I just have some other
Sure,
recognitions.
yep.
So here was, and some of these are just little articles that were in the paper, you may have seen them, but here's the article on the New Hampton DI team that we'll pass along. For anybody watching, we have set graduation date for June 14th.
Oh,
It meets all the state requirements, and so that is the day we are looking at for graduation. The high school was recognized, has been recognized, and will be recognized at the next executive counselor meeting by the Jumpstart Coalition, which actually looks to have school districts teach students about financial literacy. And so we were recognized because we actually offer and require a specific course on financial literacy for our students. So we will be recognized for that on April 23rd. So we had lots of math team, our high school math team placed second in the Lakes Region meet. We had Joshua McLean was the highest scoring freshman in the entire league. Megan Gelderman was the top scoring senior. Keegan Tracy, who left, was the highest overall scorer. And in the state, the high school math team came in 4th place in the state. So that's pretty impressive for our students. There's a little article on that. And the middle school math team they just had their competition, came in 3rd in the state. And they had 23 students participate on the math team, which is pretty significant given our numbers at the middle school.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. I think we talked earlier, David Gibson was awarded a full boat scholarship to Harvard, which is exciting.
what's he going to study?
Oh,
I think it's engineering. Yes, I know somebody that works with them.
We had several students receive Scholar Athlete Awards by NHIAA. That was Megan Gelderman, Andrea Shin, Amber Plummer, and Allie Simons. And in order to get that award, you have to have achieved academic and athletic excellence. You have to be a senior, have a B+ grade point average, play on at least 2 varsity sports, have community service activities, and be a role model for your peers. So that's a huge award for them. Our high school spirit squad came in for the first time, was in the D3 championship. They placed 7th. Not great, but for the first time they've ever gone. That was amazing. They only had 3 participants on the team 2 years ago. So to actually get to the competition in 2 years and have grown that much is great. Amber Plummer was named Girls Basketball Player of the Year. This is only the 10th player in the program of history to achieve the 1,000-point score. And actually, there's a ton of articles. We made the news this month, so here's a bunch of articles about those. And Nick Tapley and Devin Fields both signed to play Division II football at West Virginia Wesleyan College. Again, another great honor for our kids to go play football, but also to a pretty nice school that they got accepted to. And just lastly, I would like to acknowledge the musical this weekend. Susical was outstanding. I went and saw it on Saturday. They did a really nice job. Talk about a great community event. We had community members from young to old that participated, and it was a good show.
Well, I wish Lloyd were here, because he wanted us to have recognition of academic success, and we just got a whole bunch in a row.
I also have some recognitions that were in my report, but not everyone gets to see my report. So I wanted to recognize, I received a really nice letter from the parents of a preschool student who wanted to recognize the preschool team for the incredible growth that their child had made. So that's Debbie Gia, who's the preschool teacher, Kim Welch, who's a speech pathologist, Lisa Greenbarber, who's the former speech pathologist, Ed Ryan, Julie Bowler, and Rachel Spain are all paraprofessionals in the preschool, and she pointed them all out by name in the letter. Also thanking, we had a professional development for our paraeducators on the early release day, and used expertise within the district, so the following people presented at that. Joellen Dival, Deb Hoyt, Lauren Terrio, Kim Welch, June DeVloy, and Roger Prive, all offered professional development.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other business?
I would just add, I don't know if the board wants to talk about this, but I hadn't put the 195 study committee on the list, on the agenda, because I hadn't gotten responses from everybody, and I got my last response today. So I have representatives from all 7 towns now for both board and selectmen. So I didn't know if the board wanted to schedule the first organizational meeting of that committee.
Do we know?
We did direct the chair to schedule the meeting prior to May 10th
Okay.
last time, so you needed some administrative time to get what currently states is acquired. So perhaps under other business, we could take that up.
Does that include volunteers?
Yeah, well,
So the committee is the 7 members of the board, 1 member from each town, and then anybody else appointed by the committee. So the committee really needs to meet to determine if there's other people the committee would like to have on that.
So did they give you the dates of their selectmen's meetings?
Yes, I
Okay.
have them. Alexandria meets on Tuesday nights. It's gonna be interesting. Hebron meets on the 1st and 3rd Thursday at 7. New Hampton meets on Thursdays. Still meets on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays, but in the summer, they meet on the 1st and 3rd Mondays.
Okay, hold on.
Here, actually,
Second,
I have it
no,
written
no.
down, hold on. Here.
Okay, that's all right, I'm just trying to,
Pass this down.
we've got it then.
It's all written there.
Okay.
And then Danbury meets on Wednesdays, Groton meets on Tuesdays, and Bridgewater meets on Thursdays.
So I think that before, that we did it on a Monday, didn't we?
You know, I was just trying to remember that, and I can't.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we did it before board meetings.
What's that?
I think we did it before the board meetings.
Not the organizational one, I
No.
think, but after that. So it looks like we could do a Monday organizational meeting though, and then set from that. And this is their first and their alternate in that order? Or no, this is just...
This is just their first.
Okay, all right.
A couple have alternates, but I didn't put them on the list.
Okay, thanks. So here we go again with the next 2 weeks being vacation weeks. And I need our schedule.
Can you just brief a little bit more on what this is?
So this is the withdrawal study for Bridgewater and Hebron to withdraw from the district.
I put away our dates. I'm going to pull them out for our next meeting. All right, May 12th is our next meeting. Does May 5th work? Does Monday, May 5th work?
That's the one.
Oh, she's interviewing, but I don't know if you're interviewing in the evening?
Starting at 4 o'clock. So it will probably go 4 to 8 or 9.
All right, we can't do Tuesday. We can't do Wednesday. We can't do,
Actually, that Monday might work.
what Monday? The
The
5th.
5th.
But Stacy can't be here.
I understand, but it's organizational, it's educational to...
I won't be here either then.
Because
Oh,
you're
that's
just
right.
volunteered to
Stacy,
interview.
right,
That's right, you're
right.
interviewing.
Okay, let's see.
That's the 13th, though. I have nothing on my calendar on that.
So Tuesday
An odd
doesn't
day.
work. First and third Thursday won't work. So that gives us, okay, no Thursday works for Bridgewater.
I think Monday's the only day that works for everybody.
It seems that way.
Unless you go to Fridays.
Yeah, Monday or Friday. We meet on the 12th. So May 19th would be the first available Monday for an organizational meeting.
How long do we expect the organizational meeting to last?
It was 2 hours or less, wasn't it? Pretty quick.
It depends on what
What do we have on
everybody
the board
talks
agenda?
about.
I'm sorry, what?
What do we have on the agenda for the 12th?
Don't know
The
yet.
12th, well,
We'll have some more nominations, right?
hopefully. And so that's going to be probably a bigger meeting because we're going to have, we need to schedule a policy meeting because I have all the handbooks, including, we'll have support staff handbook with some very significant changes for policy and the board to review. So you'll have all of probably 7 handbooks to review and approve. So it depends on how far you want to get into those.
Yeah, we'll want to get into them. Because this was, the handbook revisions are all part of the realignment of staff.
Yeah, I mean, the support staff and the special eds are going
Experience.
to be the 2 big ones.
I seem to think the 19th makes sense because I think last year we started on the 20th of May, so it's probably the same reason.
I think I would add, I have a Danbury concert in my book on that night.
On May 19th.
So, on May 19th.
Well, that means, no, that means I have a concert too then. Yeah. I don't have it in my calendar, but yeah, that would mean it would be,
I'm gonna start bringing chocolate to these meetings.
What's that?
I'm gonna start bringing chocolate.
Yeah,
Please,
yeah.
bring it up.
All right, so.
I told you it was gonna get hard scheduling.
Okay, even though I know people don't love this, what about Friday the 16th?
Throw us.
Yeah,
I don't. It's just a long week.
Tuesday the 13th was a bad day.
Well,
yeah, Tuesdays, meet on Tuesdays.
According to our minutes.
I gotta tell you that I'm gonna say no on Friday nights.
I don't.
I know. I'm sorry, what, Jeff?
My wife works out of town. I see her only on weekends. I absolutely am not available Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
Well, John just said that we had said that we would have this meeting before May 9th. The problem is, I don't know where to put it.
Well, the conflict on May 5th is for interviews. Is that right, Stacy?
Correct. So I would not be available, and Jeff has volunteered, but just Jeff doesn't want to do it.
And Ben is out of state on that day.
On the 5th?
What about the 28th?
And the 13th was what?
The 13th is a Tuesday, and 2 boards meet on Tuesday nights.
What about the 28th? Oh, is anyone going to be away? It's school vacation.
May 28th? You mean
May
April
28th.
28th?
I mean, April, yeah.
Yeah, Stacy said she's
Yeah,
probably
both Mike and I
going to
probably
be here.
will not be here.
Well, do we have to meet before that date or just set a date before that date? And that,
Well,
you know,
it was just
is it flexible? It's a deadline? Try to get it started?
The problem is, if you go beyond the end of May, then the State Board of Education has an issue, because if we, well, I guess it's a function of coming to the conclusion in the report. But given that this is likely to be controversial, we probably ought to give ourselves the full 6 months. And there may be a need for both a minority and a majority report. And if that's the case, then that's the reason, in the back of my mind, I suggested that we direct the chair to schedule this prior to the 10th. Now, where I was going with the May 5th schedule, although that's not a good date for Ben, right?
Or Jeff or Stacy, so that's 3.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about having set this up last month to schedule it before the 10th of May. I thought that would kind of keep dates clear, but things happen, so. As the 6th month brings us into November, and the report's got to go to DOE,
Right.
and the state board meets in December.
What about April 28th? It's my kid's vacation, but I can be here. I know you can't be here, Stacy, but can the whole board be here on April 28th?
Yeah, I mean, you can have your first meeting without Mike or I. I mean,
What's that?
We're not part of the committee until you tell us we're part of your committee.
April 28th, work for you guys? Okay.
I think we should do it earlier rather than later.
Earlier what?
The 28th.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's my son's birthday. But, bring the poor child nowhere.
Stacy, are both you and Mike not available that day?
I haven't quite figured out my vacation plan yet, so there's a possibility that I could be available.
All right. Well, I'll contact them unless I hear objection. Ask about
I
meeting
don't
on that
remember
day.
the superintendent being that involved.
No, because it
Well,
was
really,
filmed.
it's more Mike than
Yeah.
Stacy.
I could do that day.
Okay,
I mean,
then the big question is, yeah, is someone going to be here to unlock the doors for us since school's not in session?
Yeah, we'll make sure.
Okay.
So what time did you want to meet at?
6 o'clock?
If that works.
Do you want me to send a notice out to the committee?
Sure, if you want to, yeah. And all of us, as a reminder. Just can't meet on April 28th?
No, I was gonna say I could be here before 6 because there's no school, so there's no after, but you
Oh.
can anyway, so.
Yeah, and I'm teaching, so I can do space
that
in
week.
between.
3 days.
And so is Christine.
Yeah, 6 is good.
Okay. April 28th, yeah, it'll work.
Has to go.
At 6.
At 6 o'clock.
Here.
Yeah, here.
I'm not that about it. Okay, we'll get that information out.
Okay. Any other business?
I have 2 things.
Okay.
One is Jesse Austin had quite a experience down in DC, and it's just something I thought should be recognized a bit more explicitly. So I wondered if we could invite him to attend a board meeting and just share with us what it was what his experiences were. Pretty amazing to be part of 104 students nationally that were recognized.
Well, we have a student coming to our next meeting to do a presentation as part of their senior project because it relates to governance.
Yep.
So,
It's just a thought to try to find out what his experience was like, because I'll bet it's something he's going to remember for the rest of his life.
I could see if you can come to the June 9th meeting.
okay, thank you.
The only other thing, Madam Chair, I had was a desire to discuss the radical change in the agenda format at some point. And I don't think it's probably a good idea to do it tonight. It's late. And I just am very concerned about the lack of input from the public in this format prior to making a decision. And so if we could have the opportunity to discuss that, it may be very quick. This board may think that that's not necessary, but it is a major change. And I think it's something I would like to discuss for all the reasons why it's a good idea to allow public input before we take action. So I've requested perhaps you could put it on an agenda at some point
Okay,
in the future.
I guess look at how busy May is and then put it in May if it's Zoom.
That's a great.
Okay, public comment on anything? Yes.
Heather Grasshopper still. I second Vincent's motion.
Michelle Cosby, Bristol Actor. That having public comment at the end, really, after they already voted. And also, why is it only on agenda issues at the beginning of the meeting? Shouldn't it be on everything? Anything that we need to bring up, when did that start?
There's always been one time for agenda items only, right?
And that's only at the beginning?
No,
When
the
usually it's
practice-
public comment.
The practice was that the public and public officials could speak on anything they wanted, which was a change at the very beginning of the meeting. Then when we would have our discussion items, we would hear from the public only on those topics that were discussed. And I, for one, have been influenced on more than one occasion by those who show up and give me input and data that I'm unfamiliar with. And it's changed my vote. And so I think it's very important to have the capability to do that. And I don't know for how long, but for the 9 years I've been on the board, it's been that way. And I would defer to Sue to perhaps give some perspective. But I believe for as long as Mary Campbell was chair, which was...
She didn't allow public comment except at the beginning like this.
No. The format of putting up an issue, discussing it, and then taking action is brand new.
Right.
No, well, it's old. It's old because it changed, I think, when you were here.
I think so too.
Into the, taking action at a separate time.
Right.
No.
I think it's since you've been on the board.
For the 9 years that I was on the board,
Mhm.
the procedure was always that we would have discussion, then we'd get public comment, and then we'd take action.
So was that done without the consent agenda, you mean?
Correct. The consent agenda was a new
Right.
approach to facilitate things.
Right.
There are secondary and tertiary issues that you will come to discover that changing the form is going to make it difficult to have accurate minutes.
Well, this,
But that's a separate part of the
that's why I
discussion.
changed it, because we're being videotaped, we're being audio taped, we have a very proficient secretary, and everyone was writing all the time instead of discussing and paying attention. I understand the comment about the public input. Fred spoke to me at the beginning of the meeting about that too. It really was not my intent, and it sort of was a byproduct, just trying to make a shorter agenda that wasn't 10 pages long, with little boxes that everybody's checking off. I understand as a chair the importance of the little boxes. and a working paper, but I don't think the public has to see 10 pages of agenda to figure out where this much material is that's important to them. So,
Well, again, that's a style issue, and far be it for me to want to tie up the chair of administrative stuff. I understand that. But the bigger issue, the real important issue to me is not being able to separate discussion from action and getting public input between that. Because the public, we represent the public. One could argue that that's what we're paid to do, is give our best posture on all the issues. But I can tell you that there would be a 5th grade at the middle school right now had I not heard the input that was given at a public session that caused me to change my vote. And it was a 4-3 vote the other way. Okay? And we'd be dealing with whatever that would currently give us. And it was all based on public input the night of the meeting, and it's just one primary example that I use that says that the public may have some information that we're unaware of that we will want to take into consideration. And along the lines of your thoughts of taking the P&D meeting to all the remote locations, I'm totally consistent with that. I agree. It's because it's consistent with getting public input, public participation. Last year when we reached out to the select boards and went and visited, the superintendent and I went to all 7 select boards, again, to elicit information from the public. This is just such a radical change in that approach for many, many years. And I would be inclined to check with Mary Campbell to see just how long it had been the case. Because her explanation to me was precisely that, as I recall. It's to allow public input in retort to whatever the discussion and positions we may have before we take action.
Well, just, I guess, discussion on that. Would it work to have our discussion and then on each motion, and then say, does the public have a comment or discussion on the motion that we're considering, as opposed to...
Which would be relevant
Oh my gosh.
to the item. Because everybody, if you notice at our meetings, everybody's like, oh, I thought of that, to wait for it. I'm just saying, I understand this rarely happens in boards, but wouldn't that make the most sense? Because you're trying to get to not having an entire discussion twice.
we were
And then have-
having discussions.
Right, and if the public could comment on that item, that would be common sense.
Well,
If you're
that's
trying to get,
a reasonable
facilitate dialogue.
modification in terms of an idea. I would tell you though, as a board member prior to being chair, I would take advantage of that downtime, if you will, to do a little online research and bolster my thoughts and information in real time, which is the whole idea of putting a policy in place for digital availability of information. And also change my mind on issues, because I had more time to think about it, rather than regret an action that I would take an hour or two later. Not regretting an action I would take an hour or two later, because I've had enough time to think about it. That's the feeling that I have, in addition to allowing the public to tell me what their feeling is. Because we're here to serve the public. And there are those that could contend that we're here to represent the public, and probably say that many other school boards don't do it this way. But it's been done this way in Newfound for a good long time, and it's worked out pretty well. And you know what? If we want to change it, that's fine with me. Let's discuss the change.
We have been, I think you made a motion to discuss it at the next board meeting, and now we've been discussing it.
Well,
That's because we brought it up.
there was
Because we
some,
brought it up, anybody else have something to say?
Well, since we are
At the end of the
discussing
meeting.
It's not public right now.
It was.
We are
I announced
discussing it.
it.
It's still
It is
public,
public.
it is still public
Oh, okay,
comment.
hold on,
Yeah.
sorry.
If you have it at the end of the
Go
meeting.
ahead, Jeff.
The initial opening for public comment at the beginning of the meeting, I believe, should probably be open to any subject whatsoever.
Okay,
And maybe it would be worthwhile changing the agenda for next meeting to reflect.
okay, yes.
I think Fred had something.
Oh, okay, because you were both, yes, go ahead.
Fred Robinson from Danbury. Having been privy to many of the meetings here, I believe after the deliberative session, there was talk by the school board about how the people had spoken about the resource officer. And then I've heard talk by the school board of how they support the public input that are here at the meeting. But there was an issue that was voted on at the deliberative session where money was put into the budget to change something that the budget committee was implementing into the budget at that time. Okay? And I have not heard a single word about that at any meeting since then. And I'm just wondering, whether that's actually something that should be on an agenda. So that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know your name.
Michelle?
Does she want to talk?
No, I just, no.
Okay, all right. Well, the intent wasn't to exclude public input. The intent was just to streamline the agenda so that it wasn't 10 pages long, which then makes the minutes 10 pages long. And I don't know that every single board member needs to write first, second, and all the votes. And that it seemed to be taking our attention away from what we were here to do. So,
Well, when we discussed that, Madam Chair, I would like to point out that even in the minutes, the record isn't recorded properly. The best example this evening was the fact that the readings were tabled and it was recorded as approved. So the simpler we keep it, the more likely we're to get accurate data. The form, again, it's not the form that I'm hung up on, but the form just made that part of it easier subsequently. The fact that it takes 6 or 8 pages for an agenda, I understand, you're an ecologist, you don't want to waste the trees, but be that as it may, my real concern is with this approach, we don't get to hear public input before we render a decision, and then maybe record it correctly.
right, well, again, that wasn't the intent of changing the agenda. So,
Well, which if we discussed it in advance, I would have pointed that out.
well,
Be that as it may.
I got no feedback, after it was sent out, so I could have used some. Go
As a
ahead.
posted
I just
agenda.
have a question. Why do you consider that not allowing public input? That's that the public comment on agenda items allows the public, before you go into any form of discussion, to address each and every item on that agenda.
But we haven't heard anything. at the
Yeah, we
beginning of
don't get the
meeting. We
packet.
can't comment.
All right, okay.
You
So
can't comment on
that's,
something you
I
don't
think
know.
what I'm asking, it's like, so you don't know what you're commenting on?
We don't have all the details.
We don't have the
If
packet.
there's been no discussion,
We have this.
Okay, well, let's discuss it again next time, but that doesn't mean it might not be changed back for next time, because there's been input already, and Fred was the first before the meeting ever began. And I said that wasn't the intent of restructuring it. Okay, anything else? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by Vincent Paul, second.
Second.
Then gets it.